Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best day of the week. It's Star Wars Talk Tuesdays, the day that we just sit around here and just talk about all the meaningless things about our absolute favorite thing in the world, and that, of course, is Star Wars. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea, and I'm honored and privileged that you are here today for us to talk a little bit of Star Wars. This show is completely exactly the same as the John Campea show, except all that we do is talk Star Wars. Non-stop Star Wars, top to bottom, anything Star Wars related you guys want to talk about, that's what we're going to talk about here on the show today. So listen, here's how today's show is going to run. I got 6 topics picked out from questions that you guys have sent in to me. Here's how you get a topic on the John Campea show and right here on Star Wars Talk Tuesdays as well. Simply email me anytime at John at the John Campea Show. That's email me at john@thejohncampeashow.com. And in the subject line, put SWTT. That stands for Star Wars Talk Tuesdays. But in your subject line, put SWTT, and maybe you'll see your topic on the show. And as always, guys, make sure you keep your emails to 90 words or less. Otherwise, it's just too big for me to even consider using or even fitting on the screen in the first place. So, with all that out of the way, let's get talking some Star Wars, and we go to question number 1. And the first topic today comes to us from Waren G Akers, who writes, with the rumors of Disney recently in talks to potentially purchase 20th Century Fox, it got me thinking, if this were to happen, could we see future Star Wars films once again opening with the traditional 20th Century Fox logo and theme? All right, thanks a lot for the question, Warren. And, you know, it's an understandable thing because connected with Star Wars is that opening moment when you're in a movie theater and the lights go down and the first thing you hear is those drums, vroom-bum, vroom-bum, dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun, and then the 20th Century Fox logo comes up. It's just, look, it's not important. It's not important at all. But it's just what I have connected with my childhood, of what I remember watching on the big screen. And every time I pop in a VHS tape, or every time then later I popped in a Blu-ray or a DVD and then a Blu-ray, whatever, it's that Fox logo comes up and it's just, you know you're there. You know you're there when that Fox thing plays. And, you know, don't get me wrong, The Force Awakens, Rogue One, all that's perfectly fine. It's still Star Wars. It doesn't need that at the beginning. But it is a really special thing, right, for us who are Star Wars fans and for those of us who've been Star Wars fans for a long time. So it's understandable when the reports came out that Disney and Fox had some talks. Apparently they're not happening anymore, but at some point they were having some talks about things. It's perfectly reasonable then for a Star Wars fan to maybe get a little bit excited and say, wait a minute, could we see that fanfare again at the beginning of a Star Wars movie? And the answer to that question is no. The answer to that question is no, because of this. And I mentioned this on another one of my shows earlier this week, but here's the thing. Disney was never in talks to buy Fox. They were never going to buy Fox. What they were in talks for was to buy assets from Fox, certain assets. So some television property rights, some movie property rights. Their primary goal for Disney was to acquire content that they can then use on their upcoming streaming service in 2019 to help them compete with Netflix. They were never going to buy Fox. Fox is still going to be a thing. Fox just wanted to change their portfolio a little bit. They wanted to narrow down, lean down, become more sports focused, more news focused, more talk focused, some entertainment as well. But they really wanted to change their focus. But they were still going to be Fox. They were 20th Century Fox. They were going to sell off some of their stuff. So the illustration I gave for this earlier this week was this. Let's say I came to your house, and let's say your name is Bobby Billy Ray, okay? So you, Bobby Billy Ray, I come to you and I want to buy your car. Okay, I come and I buy your car. Now the car is mine, but you are still Bobby Billy Ray. I did not come and buy your identity. I didn't come and buy your name. Had those talks worked out with Disney and Fox, Fox simply would have bought a number of Fox's assets. They weren't buying the Fox name. They weren't buying the Fox brand. Fox was still going to exist. Therefore, even if they acquired a bunch of the properties, even if they acquired a bunch of the IP, even if they acquired a bunch of the content, Fox is still Fox. Disney does not suddenly become Fox. Disney can't put Fox Studios in front of their Disney-produced stuff. So had even the talks worked out and gone through, no, we would not have seen the 20th Century Fox fanfare open up in front of Star Wars Episode 9 or Star Wars Episode 10 or whatever Obi-Wan Kenobi movie or whatever young Yoda movie or whatever young Greedo movie or whatever young whoever movie they're going to do next. It would not have had the Fox fanfare, because they were never in talks to buy Fox or buy their brand. They were simply in talks to buy some of their properties. And that's an important distinction to make. Thanks a lot for the question. All right, let's move on now to the next question. And the next question today comes to us from Erik Castleberg, who writes, "Sometimes I catch myself hoping Solo is good, but underperforms. Not because I want it to be a bad movie, but I want Lucasfilm to get them a message that says, we want new characters. We want you to expand the universe. I obviously want Solo to be good. I just wish it was another good movie. Am I crazy?" Well, yes and no. Like, I totally see where you're coming from, because like you, I want Star Wars to expand. I want to see, look, Star Wars is a world of 10,000 worlds with 100,000 species and billions and billions and billions of characters that you can explore, and so many different storylines and things you can go out and explore other than the core story we've already had with the core characters we've already had 100 times. I'm with you on that. I totally am. But think of it in terms of Marvel, right? Marvel puts out some of their more sure things. Their Iron Man. I mean, Iron Man was never a sure thing, but as far as their Marvel properties go, it's as sure of a thing as they had. Captain America, Thor, Hulk, right? So, Avengers. So, they get comfortable with their quote-unquote sure things, in as much as they could be sure things. They get comfortable with those, they have big success with that, and when they have success with that, that opened up the door for Marvel to feel more bold and try Ant-Man. Who would have thought we were going to get an Ant-Man movie? Seriously. 10 years ago, 5 years ago, well, not 5 years ago, because Edgar Wright was working on one 5 years ago, but like 10 years ago, if you had said, Marvel's going to do an Ant-Man movie, I'd say you're crazy. If you had told me they were going to do a Doctor Strange movie, I'd said you're crazy. Had they said a number of years ago, they're going to do a Guardians of the Galaxy movie, I would have said you're crazy. But because they had big, massive success with their other properties, it opened the door and bought them some opportunities to do some other things. Now, I believe Lucasfilm is already at that point. I believe Lucasfilm right now can make new Star Wars films with new Star Wars stories and new Star Wars characters. They can do that right now. The huge success of all their other properties has made that possible for them to do it now, today. They can do it. But they want to hang on to the characters we've lived with for 30 years. Okay, fine. So, but what we should then be doing is cheering that the Solo movie, that Han Solo, is a big success and is really good, because hopefully that will just nudge them even further towards telling them, look, you're safe. Okay? Your Star Wars properties are safe. You are free to expand a little bit, to try something different. Try something new. We're giving you permission as fans to do that. Look, Han Solo is a big success. We all went to it. So try something different. If it fails, you know we'll come back to the tried and true stuff. It's when the studios feel like we're comfortable that if we fail, if we roll the dice and if we take a chance and we fail, that the audience will still come back if we go back to the tried and true stuff. I'm hoping that if Solo is a huge success and a huge hit, that will reassure Disney and Lucasfilm that, you know what, we're good. We can take a chance. Let's try some Old Republic. Let's try something that happens at the same time as Return of the Jedi, but it happens in a distant star system with a world going through different problems of its own with a whole new set of characters. Let's try that. And if it fails, no problem. We'll come back and do that stupid Boba Fett movie. Fine. And we know that the audience will come back. Take a chance, take a risk. So for that reason, even though I wish too they were doing something else other than Han Solo, but for that reason, I really want Han Solo to be a big hit. Number one, because it's a Star Wars movie, but number two, so it reassures Disney that, hey, look, you can take a risk with Star Wars. You're safe. All your core characters are safe. Your property is safe. Your IP is safe. The brand is safe. It's okay. Try something different. We will let you. So I kind of hope that's what happens. All right. I just wanted I forgot to let you guys know, for those of you guys who are watching live right now, at the end of the show, I'm going to save a little bit of time to take your live Twitter questions and your live topics. And when it comes time, I'm going to ask you to tweet those live questions or topics to me simply at John Campea. It's the simplest way to do it. I'll let you know when we're getting close to the end there. All right. With that out of the way, let's get on now to the next question. And the third topic today comes to us from one of my Patreon supporters, Nate. And Nate writes, "Hey, John, love your work. Thank you so much, Nate. So, since R2-D2 and C-3PO have been in every Star Wars film to date, do you think they will show up in the Han Solo movie? I would feel this forced, or would this feel forced, or is there a way that would fit in the movie? Would love your thoughts. May the Force be with you." All right, thanks a lot for the question, man. And yes, you're right. R2 and 3PO have showed up in every single movie. And let's face it, I kind of wish they weren't in the prequels, especially the 3PO thing. 3PO was, let me get this, 3PO was created by Anakin. Is that what you're saying? Okay, I wish that never had happened. And even though it was cute, and it makes sense because they're on the Rebel base in Yavin 4, but I kind of felt their appearance was also a little forced in Rogue One. I'll be honest, I love me 3PO, and I love me some R2-D2. We don't need them in the Han Solo movie. Please don't force that in. I completely believe it would feel so forced. It's like, oh, there it is. There's 3PO. I mean, they're the Stan Lee of 3PO and R2 are the Stan Lee of the Star Wars universe now, I guess. I think it'll feel forced. I think it'll feel set up. There's no way to do it naturally. So, yeah, I don't want to see it. I really don't. I hope they avoid that at all costs. I don't want to see it. Now, who knows? Maybe the creative geniuses over there at Lucasfilm come up with a really creative way to integrate a 3PO and R2 cameo into the film. And if they can do that, super. Okay, that's great. But I think why bother rolling the dice? There's no need for that risk. The payoff is minimal. The risk is big. If the cameo works, it's a cute little thing that we'll all forget about. If it doesn't work, it becomes a big, huge distraction that we will be talking about afterwards. So the payoff to loss ratio of the gamble does not equal out here. So I just hope they don't do it. That's kind of the way I see it at any rate. All right, we move on now to the next topic. And the next topic today comes to us from, how do you say this? Gerson Shaddix, who writes, "Sup, John? I'm from Brazil." Oh, that's awesome, man. Codes Portuguese. And I love your show, thank you. I learned English watching Star Wars Talk Tuesday. That's awesome, man. I learned English watching Star Wars Talk Tuesday. My question is, if Disney makes a new TV show about the Old Republic, can they change everything we already know? Thanks a lot for the question. It's funny because I've had some discussions with people about this, about, you know, when people say that they want Old Republic, what I find what they're really saying some of the times, not all the time, some of the times what I'm finding they're really saying is they want their Old Republic stories from the Legends universe, from what used to be the expanded universe is now known as the Legends universe, which is no longer canon. And not everybody, but a lot of times when I'm talking to folks and they say, we'd love to see Old Republic, and then they go into some very specific stories and characters and everything. Basically, they want the EU. They want the Legends stuff brought into canon, period. And the reality is that's not likely to happen. Now, are we going to get Old Republic era stuff? Undoubtedly. I don't know if it's going to be the live TV show. I don't know if it's going to be in a future movie, but I have no doubt at some point we will get Old Republic content. Could they bring in characters? Yes, they can bring in characters. But the thing is, if they bring in characters, they're going to do it much like they brought in Thrawn. They brought in Thrawn, and of course Thrawn was a part of the Legends universe, but they brought in Thrawn into a completely different time period with a completely different set of circumstances. He was still Thrawn, but it was a totally different story with Thrawn. Thrawn didn't happen after Return of the Jedi. Thrawn happens years before the first Star Wars movie. Thrawn is now here, in the now. They took the character, kept all the essence of the character, but plopped him in a different context. So it's Thrawn, but it's not Thrawn, the Thrawn story that we know from the Timothy Zahn novels, right? Totally different. Could they do Old Republic and then change up a lot of stuff? Yeah, absolutely. Why? Because they haven't canonized a lot of the Old Republic stuff. There are some elements of Old Republic that they've already brought over into canon now, but most of Old Republic lore is still non-canonized. That means it's a free-for-all there. I want them to do whatever they want to do. Honestly, I don't want them to be bound and handcuffed to what the legend stories are. I want them to go Old Republic era, cherry pick out some really key characters that you want to use, and then make up your own stories. And just use the Old Republic era as a playground to tell some creative, great stories. So yes, the Lucasfilm group and the story group, they are totally free to mess with everything that we think we know about the Old Republic and rewrite that. Absolutely, because very, very little of Old Republic right now is canonized. Very little of it. There's a few things here and there, a few events, a few characters, but for the most part, Old Republic right now is still an open book. It's still a totally open playground that they can tell some creative stories, and it's a safe place. That's the great thing about Old Republic. It's so far removed. It's so far long ago that you can tell wild stories, and it's so far removed from the modern context of Star Wars, you don't have to worry about continuity issues. It's fine because it's separated by thousands of years, so it's good. So yes, they can. How much they'll change it up, we'll just have to wait and see. All right, let's move on now to the next question. Speaking of Thrawn, this question comes to us from Rob Stoneman. And Rob Stoneman writes, "Hi, John. With the announcement that, oh, wait a second. Oh my goodness, somebody actually used that? I've never seen anybody use one of those things. Somebody used the super chat to say, go Star Wars Talk Tuesday. It's James B. writing, go Star Wars Talk Tuesday. Thank you so much, very, very much, James. I really appreciate that. Okay, anyway, back to the question. Rob Stone writes, hey, John, with the announcement that the new Rian Johnson trilogy will explore an area of lore not seen so far, what do you think the likelihood is that this could be Thrawn and in the unknown regions, including perhaps some exploration of the Chiss ascendancy? Yeah, so I heard a discussion about this before, and somebody shot down the idea because we've seen Thrawn, and they said it's things we've never seen before. You see, though, I think when they say it's areas and things we've never seen before, I think they're talking about in the movies. I don't think they're talking about the novels, whether they're new canon or expanded universe, old legend stuff, or video games or novels or whatever. I don't think they mean that. I just think they simply mean characters we've never seen, things we've never seen before. I think they're talking about in the movies. I think they are still leaving the door open for themselves to use stuff from legends, to use stuff from the new novels, to use there's tons of stuff that we have seen before but we've never seen in the movie universe. And on that level, I think it's something they could do. It's not necessarily what they're going to do, but it's something that they could do. Could you go Thrawn with that? That's interesting. And like the Chiss Ascendancy was something that we got a little bit more light on in the Thrawn novel. I didn't think the Thrawn novel was great, to be honest with you. I thought it was okay. But some of the more interesting stuff was the Chiss Ascendancy stuff, which was really cool. I enjoyed that stuff a lot. Maybe there's some Game of Thrones stuff you could do in there with the whole idea of the real outer reaches where the Chiss all live. And maybe it's a story of the rise of Thrawn. I mean, I don't know. It's possible. I don't think they're going to do that because I think it's a little bit too far removed from the traditional Star Wars lines. Just because it's going to be different doesn't mean it can be too far removed. So I think it might be a little bit too different, a little bit too weird to go out that far. So I don't see that happening. I think most likely we're still going to see a human character as one of our leads, but who knows? Thrawn is definitely a possibility. All right. Let's go on now to the last emailed in question of the day before I go over to your guys' live Twitter questions. You can start getting your live Twitter questions ready. And the last emailed in topic today comes to us from Matt Augusta, who writes, with the news about Rian Johnson taking over a whole new trilogy, do you think there's any chance that it could be a Kenobi trilogy? Thanks. That, of course, obviously is the next big thing that people started buzzing about, right? When Rian Johnson's coming, first of all, we've already been talking about a Kenobi movie, right? And a possible Kenobi trilogy. Could this Rian Johnson thing be that? I don't think so. Because it sounds like for a Kenobi movie, they've already got a director in mind, and I don't think that was Rian Johnson. Plus, I believe I think the Kenobi movie is going to be an anthology movie. I think it's going to be a standalone film. And maybe they'll do a second one, but I think the first one will be done as a standalone film that maybe is then later built upon by another film. But I don't think they're going to look at Obi-Wan as trilogy. I could be wrong about that. Totally could be wrong. But the feeling I get is that they're just going to do a Ben Kenobi movie. And then maybe do a Ben Kenobi movie 2 after that, but we'll see. Whereas the Rian Johnson stuff is a pure new trilogy. I think they already have people in mind for their Obi-Wan stuff, but I do believe that Obi-Wan is going to take the place of Rogue One and Han Solo. I think Obi-Wan Kenobi is going to be those anthology movies that go in between the years that are Rian Johnson's trilogy. So that's how I think it's going to happen. So no, I don't think the Rian Johnson thing is the Obi-Wan movie, but I don't think that means the Obi-Wan movie isn't happening. I just think they're probably going to have different people involved with that. Or I could be totally wrong. Maybe they very specifically are bringing in Rian Johnson to Obi-Wan, but that goes away from what we were just talking about. They're saying that the stuff that Rian Johnson will be doing is about stuff we've never seen before, at least in the movies. We've seen lots of Obi-Wan in the movies, so I kind of doubt that's the case. All right, guys, it's time for you guys to start firing in your Twitter questions. If you are watching this show live right now, you can fire off your live topics and questions to me simply at John Campea. Now, before I get to those, I'm going to do my little commercial break, my shameless plug of the Patreon page, because, of course, the Patreon page is the thing that even makes these shows possible, guys. So here, check this out. I'll be back in just a minute. For those of you who have followed me for any period of time, you guys know that I made the decision recently to leave the corporate overlords. I no longer wanted to work for corporations. I wanted to be an independent content creator. And the only way I've been able to do that is by the support of my Patreon supporters. So what I would like to do is to ask you guys who watch my shows, who spend any amount of time with me every single month, to consider going over to www.patreon.com/John Campea. There you'll get all the information about what exactly does it mean to be a Patreon supporter of mine? What does being a Patreon supporter do for helping to make sure that shows like this one and all the other shows I do here on my channel can actually be produced? And on top of that, what benefits are there to being a Patreon supporter? And maybe if you guys can check that out, if you decide you want to be one of my Patreon supporters, that would be awesome. And if you don't, that's perfectly fine too. I'm just happy that you guys have decided to be here today and be a fellow movie fan and join us in the conversation. So go and check out the website, see if you want to become a Patreon supporter. And now let's get back. All right, guys, and we're back. Thank you for checking that out. And thank you, a special thank you to all of those of you who are already Patreon supporters. I really appreciate it. You guys make these shows possible. Thanks a lot. All right, now I said it's time for us to go over to the live stuff. So let me open up the Twitter message board right here, right now, and see what we got. And let's get rolling with this. The first live question from you guys who are watching live right now comes to us from Pierce D. Ducky, who writes, John, have you got an invite to a press screening of The Last Jedi yet? No, they haven't started sending those out yet. I don't expect we're going to see these probably for another 2 weeks. I expect in probably about 2 weeks, I'll probably start seeing the first invitations to Star Wars screenings. And trust me, I will let you guys know because I'll have it all over my social media. I'll be jumping up and down, the Star Wars screening, I'm going to be freaking out. Somebody's going to make a gif of that, I just know. So no, not yet, but I expect it probably in the next couple of weeks. Probably not right away, though. All right, let's go on to the next one. This one comes to us from Anthony Zarazua, who writes, John, how about an anthology film about an up-and-coming Jedi Knight, Qui-Gon Jinn, featuring Jedi Master Dooku? No, again, I don't want more stuff. Like, I appreciate the question, I do, but I don't want more stuff about characters we've already freaking seen. Star Wars is huge. Let's go to that galaxy where there's billions of other characters we've never talked about before. I don't want to go, like, look, of course, if they do that and they make Qui-Gon a Star Wars story, if they make that, of course I'll go see it because it's Star Wars. Of course I will. And I'll be excited about it and all that kind of stuff. But if you're going to ask me in advance, is that the one I want? No. I want something new. I want something different. So that's what I would lean towards. Again, but look, Star Wars is everything to me. So I'll be there, bells on. You do a Qui-Gon movie, I'll be there with bells on. Super excited about it. I'll put on my Jedi robes and swing my plastic lightsaber, sure, and I'll be excited. But if you're going to ask me in advance, I don't want more of the characters that we've already freaking seen. Let's stop making the universe smaller. Let's make the universe bigger. That's kind of that's my personal opinion, though. I know you probably feel a little bit differently, and that's totally awesome. That's one of the great things about being Star Wars fans. But yeah, I would definitely go in a different direction. I would go in a different direction. All right, next one comes to us from Mag Dave, who writes, "Hey John, will you play Battlefront 2 this Friday? Have you heard about the early reviews?" I haven't heard about the early reviews yet, no, but I am definitely getting it on Friday. And I am definitely going to be playing it. I might even stream me playing it. Don't hold me to that. I've never streamed me doing gameplay before, so I'm not totally sure I'll do that. But I am definitely going to be playing it this Friday. I'm definitely picking it up right away, and I'll let you know how it goes. Let's see. This next one comes from Aunit79, who writes, "John, do you plan on playing Battlefront 2 campaign mode? I myself am excited to play the story." Absolutely. You know what? Honestly, even World of Warcraft, I don't play a lot of it with a lot of parties. Even in World of Warcraft, like I don't do a lot of instances, and I don't do a lot, like I mainly like to just play by myself and play my own story. And to be honest with you, one of the reasons I'm excited about Battlefront 2 is that there's a single player campaign mode. And that's the thing I'm not excited about the multiplayer stuff. I don't get that excited about multiplayer stuff. I'm most excited about the campaign mode. So yeah, I'm totally excited about that. Okay, let's see. Next one comes to us from JJP Murphy, who writes, "John, please relax and enjoy it all. You are working so very hard and doing very well. Daily joy, John. I appreciate it." Well, thank you so much. I do work hard because I love working hard. I love talking movies with you guys. You guys make it worthwhile to do it. So I hope I just love being a part of the film fan community. And I hope the little stupid videos I do, in your opinion, contributes to the film fan community. So thank you very much for the well wishes. I appreciate that. Let's see. Leo J. Huggins writes, "John, but John, wouldn't any Star Wars Old Republic movie flopping hurt the brand, especially now?" No, not necessarily. Especially if it's something different. Let's put it this way. Star Wars Episode 9 flopping would have a much bigger impact than, say, New Frontier, a Star Wars story about totally new characters in a totally side story on a totally different world. See, if Episode 9 flops, that's the brand. Something that's smaller and more experimental that they try, and if that flops, fine, no problem. You can survive that. That's not nearly as big of a deal as, say, something more core to the brand. Like New Frontier, a Star Wars story flopping would also not have nearly as much effect as Han Solo, a Star Wars movie, flopping. Because that's more tied in with the brand, right? So no, I think the more wild you go, the further out you go, the less the risk is. At least the less the risk is for damage to the IP. It is a bigger risk for can it succeed, but it's a smaller risk for it possibly damaging the IP. Let's see. Let's try this one. This one comes from Ethan Canistra, writes, "John, what is your favorite novel or comic in the new canon?" Oh, easily. Lords of the Sith. Lords of the Sith is so far heads and shoulders above and beyond everything else that's been put out there. Like, huge props to Lost Stars, which is magnificent. Huge props to Tarkin. Big props to Bloodline. But to me, by far, Vader down in the comic world. But nothing else comes close. Honestly, nothing comes close to Lords of the Sith. Like, it's Lords of the Sith up here, and then everything else, like 2, 3, 4, 5 down here. Like, it's just that much of a disparity. Lords of the Sith is just absolutely freaking brilliant. Thank you for the question. All right, next one. Let's see. This one comes to us from Jay Sutton95, says, "John, do you think Joseph Gordon-Levitt will cameo in Rian Johnson's trilogy? He seems to be Ryan's lucky charm." Well, sure, why not? I mean, but probably in the same way that Simon Pegg cameoed in J.J. Abrams' The Force Awakens as Unkar Plutt. Now, maybe there's some of you who didn't know that. Simon Pegg was Unkar Plutt. So if he does, it'll probably be like that. It'll probably be one of those things where you don't even realize it's him, and then later you read about it being him. So probably in a scenario like that. Let's see. Next one comes to us from Smickball, who writes, "John, if Snoke is from a part of the galaxy we are now unfamiliar with, how about a story taking place there?" No, I don't want... No! Get away from Snoke. Get away from Finn and Rey and Luke and Leia and Han and Jabba, and get away from all the people we already know. Now, if you're talking about like just a story about that world, not necessarily a story about young Snoke, then okay, then I'd be down for that. Yes, then I'd be down for that. But if you're talking about, let's look at young Snoke growing up where he grew up, then I'm not into it. But if it's just look at that world, depending on what we know about Snoke by the end of The Last Jedi, that could be a possibility. Let's see. This one comes to us from our Papermaster, right, who writes, John, how would you feel about the next Star Wars animated series taking place between Jedi and The Force Awakens? Well, there's a huge time period there, right? That's a big, big gaping hole of time period right there. And so there's lots of things you can do in there, lots of stories you can tell. So yeah, I'd be down for that. I've got no problem with that whatsoever. Okay, time for just a couple of more. Let's see. Here we go. Alpha for Real writes, John Campea, why would people care about new Star Wars characters but not Batman? Because nobody cares about Batman Beyond. I mean, that's, look, and here's the thing, because Batman is already somebody. Batman, to everybody else in the world, is Bruce Wayne. That's Batman. This kid, Terry Guinness, I think his name is, he's not Batman. I don't care. Look, you may have enjoyed the animated show, and that's great if you did. That's awesome. But that Terry kid is not Batman. There is a Batman, and his name is Bruce Wayne. And if I go stand in a line right now at a movie theater, and 200 people come out of the theater, and I ask, who's Batman? How many out of 100 do you think are going to say Bruce Wayne? 100 of them. 100. Maybe 99. There's already total connection there with that. Star Wars has told many stories of many characters across decades and decades and decades and decades of stuff. So for us to tell for instance, the Rogue One, it was a totally different movie. There are some familiar things there, but it's a totally different movie. When people think Batman, they think Bruce Wayne. And there's a reason Batman Beyond never got past, what, 2 or 3 seasons? Because nobody watched it. Like, relatively speaking, like compared for real legit big number size. So it's a totally different scenario. Don't try to compare those two. Find another analogy. There might be another analogy that might work better in your favor. But comparing the Star Wars situation, what it is, to Batman, a single character situation with one known guy amongst all the film fans in the world, it's a bad analogy. It does not work in your favor. Try something different. Let's see this. Last question of the day. And we'll go here. Ant Zone writes, John, do you think the current season of Rebels is happening in the same time frame as Rogue One, or is it leading up to it? It's leading up to it. It's getting closer and closer and closer and closer and closer. I won't be surprised if the end of this season, which is the end of the series, bumps right up to the beginning of Rogue One. I mean, obviously, we're seeing a lot of Rogue One elements in there. We saw the big Kyber crystal that's supposed to power the Death Star. By the way, this season of Rogue One has been really good. Has been really exceptional. I'm going to do a mid-season review of Rebels. I'm going to do a mid-season review of Rebels. Did I say this season of Rogue One? I meant this season of Rebels has been really good. And so once I watch the next episode, I'm going to do a mid-season review of it because I'm very happy with it. I'm very pleased with this season. I think there's been one episode that I was a little bit iffy on, but for the most part, I feel like this season has been all killer, no filler. I feel like it's been a really good season. So I'm really happy with it myself. All right, guys, that will do it for me for this installment of Star Wars Talk Tuesdays. Thank you so much for joining me. Listen, once again, don't forget, click that thumbs up button if you like these videos. Leave a comment and a thought below. Remember, we're all Star Wars fans together. It's cool to have disagreements and debate, but remember, let's treat each other like we're all fellow Star Wars fans at the same time. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel. Follow me on social media, simply at John Campea. That will do it for me, guys. Thanks so much for joining me. Once again, my name's John Campea, and until next time, bye-bye.